All right, I think I should start. Hey everyone. So I didn't make slides for this session because I felt like I've already spoken about. Hey Angie, I reserved the chair for you. I know. You're in good company though. So we have Angie and then Catch, my two co-maintainers for Drupal 8. I figured I would pull them in, if you guys are cool with that. So again, I've no slides for this session because I've already spoken about Drupal 8 in my keynote. There's been sessions by each of the initiative leads. Angie just did a session on Drupal 8 as well. I mean, like, we've talked about Drupal 8 a lot. And so I didn't want to, talk about it again in a formal manner. And instead, I wanted to make it a real conversation because it's a core conversation is the name of the track. And so there's a few things I did want to say, but I very much hope that people have questions for the three of us or for me or for other people in the audience. And that we, talk about things which are on your minds. And let's see how it goes. So before I start, I wanted to maybe do a little quick brain dump about how I'm feeling, and so I'm feeling really well. And yeah, and I think every Drupal development cycle goes through phases. Like in the beginning of a Drupal development cycle, people are very nervous because nothing seems to happen. It's like, why is nobody working on code? And reality is most people are still upgrading their modules. And so there's this angst. But slowly but certainly that starts to change and momentum of development starts to pick up. And so right now it feels like there's quite a bit of momentum. Big patches are being submitted, lots of people are working on things, and so a lot of great things are happening. And that's because we're getting closer and closer to the code freeze date. And because people are finally, moving away from, upgrading their modules to Drupal 7 to, starting to look forward about what they want to do around Drupal 8. And so that's good. I'm very happy with the momentum. I'm also very happy with the issue queue and the way the issue queue is being managed. And, big kudos to Catch. And yeah. And not only for coming up with the with our new system of there being thresholds, right, for criticals and major bugs, but also for managing the issue queue so well, and Angie and others as well. So I feel really good about that. However, there's things that I'm worried about, which I'll talk about in a second. But I do want to tell you, between now and the next DrupalCon, we may feel different. Because what's going to happen right now is, there's going to be more tension about getting things done before the code freeze date. And that makes people a little anxious. And because they're a little anxious, the mood may change a little bit. And that's what has happened historically. And so I just wanted to give people a heads up that may happen. And I think we should maybe we can discuss this in the session. Is there things that we can do proactive, in a proactive way to not only recognize that is going to happen, but are there things we can do now while we're in happy zone that could prevent some of that, stress and tension before the code freeze day to be less, or maybe even go away. So that's an interesting thing, I think, and it's a challenge to all of you to think a little bit about that and maybe make some suggestions. It's gonna happen because I'm now in a position where I need to start saying no more often, right? So in the beginning of the freeze of that development cycle, everything pretty much goes like, yep, great idea, let's do this and let's do this. But now we're slowly getting to a point where we need to be a little bit more restrictive as what we can still start. Like if there's a giant initiative that somebody wants to do, well, we need to carefully consider if it's still, a good idea to do it at this stage, because chances are we will not get it done. It also, all right, so that's one thing. The other thing is, even with regards to the existing initiatives, right? I think, Angie, in your presentation, you showed, here's what we were planning to do, here's how much we actually got done, and here's how much we still need to do. And we actually need to do a lot of work. There's a lot of work left. And so that means that, me and Catch and Angie and other people need to start saying no a little bit more. And that we need to think about what is a straight line from where we are today to, getting something done by the end of the code freeze. And sometimes we tend to go like this, right? Or, we can do this and we can do this. And so I think we need to start saying no to some of these things. And here's one example, and it's just an example. I don't necessarily want to call it out, but the annotations patch that went in. Great work. I love annotations. I've used them extensively in the past. But technically speaking, it's something which wasn't strictly necessary to do the things that we wanted to do. We could have kept using info hooks for another release. And so these are the kind of things that we need to carefully take in mind, because the annotation patch took quite a bit of time, several weeks, I think 3 weeks or so of work, and it took a lot of different people to review it, to provide feedback. And so it's actually taking away a lot of our time and attention from other things which we could be doing, which arguably could be considered to be in the critical path, to say getting the Symfony stuff in or getting web services completed. And so one of the things I'll have to do more and more of as we get closer is to be more critical about these kinds of features if we want to manage towards this code freeze date. Now, the big thing here is that I cannot do that alone. Neither could WebChick, Catch, and I do this alone. It's really, if we want to scale as a community, we all need to be critical about these things, and we all need to help say no to these things. Because I can't go around and look at all of these issues and figure out if this is really necessary or is this nice to have. And so this is kind of a call to action to all of you people working on core, to be critical about the things that we are working on. And I know it's difficult in a community where people work on things that they're passionate about, and we can't really tell people what to work on and what not, but we just need to be smart about it, or we're going to have a lot of stress and tension towards the end of the code freeze and the feature freeze, right? Because people are going to say, well, we have all of this work left to do. And so I think if we can try to avoid that, that would be great. All right. So another thing that I'm worried about is performance. We're adding a lot of things to core, and it may affect how fast we can serve pages. At the same time, I was talking to Chicks. Is he here? I don't know. Oh, yeah. Oh. You were hiding. But so Chicks came to me yesterday. He was all excited. And he's, we all know Chicks when he's excited, right? And we all like it. But he was all excited, but it was very positive in a sense that, the issue queues are really well managed. And he's like, so what will we do between the code freeze and the actual release date that we put forward? Because he's like, well, there's only 20 critical bugs. I mean, we fix it in a month. And then we have 5 months left, he said. Is that true, Chicks? Yeah. All right. Do we have that on the record? And so, and I think there's a lot of truth. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. That's what I told him. I think there's a lot of things we need to work on. And, hopefully we'll be in a better situation than we were before. Before we had over 100 critical bugs. But hopefully that will give us more time to work on performance as well, right? So performance is something that I'm worried about. Are there things you guys are worried about? But I mean, I have my thing. So I'm worried about managing towards this release and making sure we work on the most important things, and then performance. These are kind of two things that I'm worried about. I don't know, Catch or Angie, if you have other things.
To your point about, is this on? Whoa.
Yep.
Yes. Sorry. I mean, to your point about the fact that we're in a happy zone and we're soon to be not in a happy zone, one of the things I'm kind of worried about is that we don't yet have any kind of infrastructure in place for supporting conflict resolution and things like that. And I think the number of conflicts in the core queue, even in the happy zone, have been rising, just as passions have been inflared, and some people have, how do we put this tactfully, a creative expression of their, anyway, some people some
like
people
poetry.
just kind of like can get fixated on something, and it's just like, and we don't have a process for solving that other than like ping WebChick or ping Randy Fay or whatever. I'm a little worried about that, and so I think the work that we've done in the governance, stuff is really important to try and get that community working group in place before the unhappy season, so that we have some sort of a structure to handle this as we go on.
So I'm always worried about performance, but getting more worried. And I think the other thing is we've got like a lot of we're trying to put as much infrastructure in as we can so that we can use it, but we're not really using a lot of things yet very much. So we could end up in a situation where we have like the new stuff and then the old stuff is still there, which we always do every release. Like the same with the entity system with Drupal 7, we only just about use that now in Drupal 8. But I would really love it if we didn't do it so much in Drupal 8, and we actually got we use the plugin system for like as many plugins as we can, and we have like proper request response handling for as many page callbacks and boxes as we possibly can, so that we don't have this like half-assed like 4 things that like one of them was added in 4.7, one was added in Drupal 6, one was added in Drupal 8 that all did the same thing, and we still haven't ripped out the old one because we never actually got to the patch that did it. So any stuff that's like finishing that would be great.
Which gets back to a question of what we're gonna do in between November and February and August, and the question that we discuss often and among initiative leads and all kinds of people who work on all kinds of stuff is that it would be good to have some more clarity on what's the kind of non-feature thing for conversion of things to the infrastructure that we're built in, and if you can provide examples of what you think that would be feasible there, so that would help us focus on really the features or the infrastructure to build in, and then we can do the conversions and the rest later.
So I might get into trouble, but for me, like what I wanted to do ages ago was basically if we kept under the thresholds, if we kept under the thresholds, we would gradually lower the thresholds during code, like that freeze. And if we stayed under, any old crap can get in while we're under, because it means we're doing well and we can still release. And you can put API changes, UA changes, stuff like that. We might not do that, but I think if we're comfortable that we can release, then we should try to convert stuff, because even if someone's module port gets messed up in March next year, like everyone's module port in September will be considerably easier. So from my point of view, like we need to get tighter and tighter and tighter, but we should, like, we're trying to get API additions into Drupal 7. And just give me a look.
No, I'm only giving you a look because I think your question was slightly different. You wanted to know well, maybe it's not different, but it's like, take CMI, because I know CMI a little bit better. CMI has a bunch of things that have to happen. For example, UI to convert or to do synchronization, import, export. Because the thing I showed in the video isn't actually in core. It's a patch that we rejected because it was so unintuitive that it would. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, it's totally in core. It's ready to go now. But something like that. And then another thing that needs to happen for CMI to succeed is we need to do conversions of all of the settings pages to CMI. And I think the question was more like, can we punt some of that kind of stuff until after feature freeze? Right? Is that what you asked, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of intricacies there. So those conversions turn out issues for multilingual that might turn into features that we figure out we're missing. So I'm not saying that should be postponed. I'm saying that if it needs to be postponed, then what to what extent it's totally okay, because we are just, it's not features.
So, but I don't think we know yet, right? I think it's all going to depend on how things are at when we freeze. And you know, if we're in really good shape, I personally don't think it's meaningful to release Drupal 8 sooner than we set forth. But, you know, it's my personal opinion. We can discuss it as a community, obviously, and maybe we should. But so if you ask me right now, I would say if we're in really good shape, you know, we can keep adding features effectively, and I think that's along the lines of what, you know, Catch is hoping for, I think, as well, with his system.
And things like changing like a variable get to like a config get and stuff, that it's like borderline API changes, and we have to get it done. So if like we just have to call them like major tasks instead of.
I think an important thing about
So
CA
one thing, if maybe quickly introduce yourself and then ask your question, so people know.
Okay, I'm Jess. I'm XJM.
Thank you.
And I think that a thing that is different about the CMI conversions is that if those don't happen, CMI as a concept doesn't work. Whereas a lot of these other sort of like API cleanup refactor things that we want to do, like the configurable stuff, if core doesn't use its own API for that, like if node types don't get converted, that's kind of crappy for DX, but at the same time we can still ship with it. So that seems to me like something that's much safer to do much later in the release cycle. And I mean, would you agree with that? Because it and things that are being introduced for the initiatives that are like new as part of their API, I think is probably different from stuff that's already a part of core that we're changing. So that was my comment.
And I agree. And you know, I actually suggested that, you know, to come back to the annotations example, for example, I actually suggested that, you know, annotations could have been, it's an example of something which could have been done later, because, I mean, anyway, do you disagree? Or?
Well, for annotations in particular, I would say that it made views conversion go a lot faster, probably.
But yeah, so the thing is, there's always an argument to do something. And yeah, it will make views conversion faster. It helped a lot. Yeah, it did.
We did it in like 2 days? 3 days.
Right, any questions from the audience? Because I could keep talking, but I really want to make this a conversation. Doug?
Doug Green. I already asked Myers this question. I'm curious on your take of it. I'm a little concerned that I don't know who the major corporate customer is going to be as a beta user. You know, we had so many bugs we found through Examiner and Acquia, you know, Gardens, baking this in early, and I don't know if we have anyone like that doing that with 8.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know either. Anyone planning to use Drupal 8 early on?
Can we tempt you? It's so solid. Chicks thinks it can be done in a month.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, we're a little bit too close, I think. But you know, not too close. We're a little bit too far away from Drupal 8 being ready enough. I mean, it's still a year from now. But hopefully some companies will emerge. Chicks?
So, because everybody's harping on this, if you look at the state of core, we have a couple hundred tests with about 40,000 assets, and they consistently pass. What I was referring to Dries yesterday was that last fall, when we have introduced the thresholds and begin to refactor Drupal very seriously, we made an agreement that we can comment out tests to get some refactors in and open criticals for them to fix. This was the process that we agreed on. And we never needed to do that, actually. So this is why I said that we are in a surprisingly solid state. And this is why I believe that we are at a much better place than we were when we were doing Drupal 7. For example, it took about a year to get the upgrade path fixed. Now we have upgrade path tests, and we have a solid upgrade path. So all those things that were hindering the 7 cycle is clearly not happening now. It doesn't mean that we will not find new things, but I still think that we are in a very good shape, and that's because of the tests that always pass. Now, for a question. Do we have any ideas of what we are going to do to stop patches getting committed from a needs review state?
What do you mean by that question? Sorry. What we're going to do to stop patches being committed?
From a needs review state instead of the RTBC state?
That doesn't happen often, does it?
It doesn't.
It does? I mean, I don't remember. Do you have examples? I don't know. Well, but I think at the end of the day, it seems like it's, I mean, I should give your example, but I think it happens once out of 100 patches. Not even, I think. Sorry?
Quite probably, but this was a particularly big one very recently because the bundle patch went in. While I was actually, when you committed it, I was actually reviewing it with Kat. So
but it was not RTBC?
No, in case you didn't see. So that I really would like that not to happen. Whenever it happens, it's really annoying. It's hard enough to keep up with the RTBC queue, but to keep up with the CNR queue in case it gets committed, that's impossible.
Anyway, I look at these on a case-per-case basis. I mean, I don't remember the details of the bundle patch right now, but I believe it had been RTBC and it had been worked on, and I looked at it, and we looked at it together even with Angie and Alex and others, and we felt it was good to go. So, we can always go back and fix things after it landed.
Yeah,
so.
Of course.
And just to point out that core committers generally are core committers because they were really kick-ass patch reviewers before. So, like, I don't necessarily think that should be a rule that we can't commit something from needs review. But yeah, if you see something that's effed up, mark it back to needs work. We always reiterate on stuff that we do.
And there has been instances where patches were committed that broke things terribly, whether they were RTBC or not, and then we roll them back. It's usually not a big deal.
Hey, Marie. Is my Drupal.org username. Basically, I guess the concern that I have is that we only have 3 months left, and we're doing some major changes, and especially when we're looking at what's happening with the templating engine and stuff like that. If we are in a good state where we only have that small amount of bugs, etc., is there a possibility, or should we be looking at possibly extending that analysis time to kind of, really work out what's happening, like in regards to how the templating is going to work in with the Scotch and how Scotch is going to fit in with the back. Just seems like there's a lot of work there, and possibly need a little bit more analysis with that, or just,
it's a good question. So the question is really, are we going to extend the code freeze?
I mean, how confident are we that because it's such a big change, it really, really is. How confident are we that come 3 months' time that we're going to have, and I'm kind of more even just talking about the front end stuff, let alone with, a lot of what's going on there, and just because of all the interaction with everything, how confident are we that we're going to be able to be in a state where we're going to have ironed out a lot of that, so we don't end up with a Drupal 8 that's got kind of what we want happening, but because we didn't get everything in there, we're still having to have a lot of exceptions in there for things.
It's a tough one because, we set a date. The date has been set for a while, right? And I think it's our job to try and work towards, that date. And whatever date we set, if we extend it, there's going to be other things which are at the phase where the team system is right now, and it's always going to be this discussion, always. It's just going to mean these things get in, but then these other things which we then started, and so I don't think that actually solves any problems. It just allows certain things to get in, but then it's still frustrating for other people in the end. So, like right now, I'm not planning to extend the code freeze date. Karen?
I'm Karen Stevenson, Karen S. You talk about having like a big example site to sort of test things on, and the other thing that really gives an opportunity to test things is contrib modules, right? So when contrib starts converting, a lot of times that's the thing that sort of flushes out the fact that something's not working. So my thinking is, you know, and I don't know the best, I mean, it's one thing to just go tell everybody, oh, hey, contrib, you should go get upgraded to D8 while it's changing constantly, which is really hard to do. But just kind of any kind of thing to, and there's some big changes here, and I know as a contrib author that, like, until I came here, I felt like I was completely losing track of where some of these things were going, and it, you know, so you got to do this whole education process and get your head around what's going on, and then do the work of doing the upgrade. So anything that we can do to support contrib modules in getting upgraded to D8, I think will provide some good testing of how this actually is working out in reality.
And this is actually a good time to bring that up as we're getting closer to code freeze. That also means, you know, effectively once, feature freeze, I keep mixing them up. But, you know, once we're feature frozen, that may actually be a good time to start, you know, making sure things like coder module work again, and like all of our documentation is in good shape to help people with those migrations. So if you, that effectively means, you know, that the maintainers of coder module, this sort of needs to, you know, start working on getting their module ready for Drupal, you know, for Drupal 8 migrations. So this is actually a good time to start, you know, to Karen's point, to start, you know, building up the machine to help, you know, well, to help, first of all, 15,000 modules to be converted from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, but then even bigger is to, you know, we need to now educate tens of thousands of developers around the world on all of these changes, and we need to, you know, make them Symfony developers. And so how are we going to do this? And it's a giant, massive project, and I think it's another good reason why it makes sense to have a long code freeze, frankly, because it's going to take people, you know, quite some time to learn all about all of the changes and to feel, to get to a point where they have enough confidence in their Symfony skills, and like, I don't know, it's going to be a big process in my mind. I don't know if you want to add something, Angie or Catch, in terms of what we need to do there. You don't have to if you don't have anything.
Well, one thing that would help support that a little bit is we, thanks to the work of Jennifer Hodgson and a couple of other people, we moved to this, you know, in the past when we tracked our API changes, there was an enormous wiki page of doom that crashed Chrome when you looked at it because there was so much crap on it. So now it's a little better. It's like little nodes, but the nodes also keep track of things like, does this have a coder upgrade rule attached to it yet? And does this have the documentation updated? And where does the documentation that affects this live? Is it themer documentation? Is it site builder documentation? And stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of people maybe in this audience as well as maybe listening after who, you know, you don't feel like you're one of the hardcore people that are in the core queue 24/7 and notice things like patches getting committed from needs review, but you do care about Drupal 8 and you really want to help in some way. These sort of infrastructure related tasks would be a really great move. So, you know, if you are able to port coder upgrade to Drupal 8 and start making little rules for each of the things in that list and start checking them off, that's going to completely accelerate the velocity of getting people to use Drupal 8 on day one. And I think that I think I can speak for the coder module maintainers when they say they don't want that responsibility.
Are they here, by the way?
Themselves. I see Doug, and I know Stella's somewhere.
Yeah, Stella and I pass the torch on to everything.
Sorry that?
Stella and I pass the torch back to me with her family.
Right. So now Doug is the maintainer.
And we'll sprint on it tomorrow, and I've got that'll find out there and start working.
Oh, perfect. So if you're interested in helping with that, Doug is going to be leading a sprint tomorrow, so you can help kind of get that infrastructure in place, because it's extremely valuable. If you want your work to have a big impact, it's hard to have a bigger impact than helping hundreds of thousands of developers contributed modules and custom modules and everything make the jump from 7 to 8 more easily.
So
Next question.
one of your things you brought up was worried about performance on like how performant Drupal 8 is going to be. I'm curious if right now we have tests that relate to like XFProf or whatever that's called for automated testing of performance, and also for that on the front end side of it, doing stuff like web page test, automated testing, and JavaScript testing unit. Because right now, as far as I know, there's not anything.
Right. Yeah. And
Um,
yeah. So there is no real performance testing right now in an automated fashion, and it's something that we've dreamt of for many years. To be honest, like we've always talked about how great it would be to have continuous performance testing.
The other thing with that is not something you can do with Drupal 8, but Drupal 7 now, because it has a lot of install profiles.
Mhm.
You could create some tests around install profiles and kind of automate that, and that would bring in contrib as well.
Right.
For performance testing, there aren't any, but there is a sandbox. I've forgotten where it's gone. But either Bejibus or Mark Solomon is the maintainer, and there is stuff in there, like there's a thing that will let you run like basically a simple test and then get the XH prof output from that. So if anyone wants to work on that, that would be really amazing, because we've wanted it for years and years and years, but we don't have it. The chances of getting it on the test spot, like usefully for Drupal 8, are low, but having things that people could run locally would be good. And having it so that we have it like early in Drupal 9 would be good now. Like if we want it for Drupal 9, someone needs to start working on it now and get it running, and like, because that's it could take a year to really get it going. But like if you care about this, like manually profiling core, like I had a quick look the other week and we were running like 14 delete queries on every page because of like a one-liner in the cashback end. Like stuff like that still goes in, so you just get extra. Any page you're bound to find something, open issues for it. And if you don't know how to use it but you do, that's a good way to learn.
And I think it's actually a great way for people to get involved in Drupal. I mean, can probably be a little bit challenging, but just profiling and performance testing Drupal core, and finding things and then digging into code and like trying to figure out why it is slow. It's a great way to learn about Drupal, and it actually builds up a great skill, a skill that's much wanted. There's a lot of organizations that need these kinds of people that can help them make their Drupal sites faster. So it's a great way to learn about Drupal. It's a great way to build up some unique skill sets that many people don't have. So next question.
Yeah, I'm Thomas Svensson, and if we look today, Drupal now is a multi-year release between majors, and it's not really until you start trying to build sites and there is a healthy amount of contrib modules where you start to discover that a lot of functionality in core is actually incomplete. To take the contrib token module for Drupal 7, adding the list of available tokens and those and also missing tokens in core. Wouldn't it be good if those things can be added easier in point releases and not have to live in core or contrib?
Yes, I think it would be. So the thing we're always balancing is we've became more relaxed over time, but we have a policy of once we have a major release of not breaking APIs and making sure that websites can easily upgrade. And so early on, we didn't allow for any new things to be added. Right now, we do have a policy that we can add new features and functionality as long as it doesn't break existing websites. And we're a little strict about that, though, because because we don't want to we don't want to break any websites basically when people upgrade. Going forward, I think one conversation that I would like to have, and it's not just today, but like it's going to be quite the conversation, is do we want to change our position on backwards compatibility? And I'm slowly warming up to a model which basically maybe maintains backward compatibility for one release. And so that gives us potentially the best of both worlds, where we can make API changes. We don't need to maintain them forever. We need to maintain them for one release, right? And so Drupal 7 module would run straight on Drupal 8, for example. However, so we would basically, the problem though is it would be more work for the core developers. So we need to talk about these trade-offs. Another advantage is if we did maintain backwards compatibility for a release, we may be able to do more releases, and that could actually get more core developers into Drupal. And we could do maybe a yearly release or whatever, rhythm we choose as a community. And that would, to loop it back to your question, that would enable us to, to make, maybe bigger changes.
A lot of the problems we discover as a site builder is actually making our life really hard because we have to find workarounds on learn how to create, apply patches, maintain all these kind of things we not really have much experience of.
Right. I think it's a great topic. It's been an ongoing conversation. I think it will continue to be a conversation. I don't think we need to resolve it now. I don't think I would change our position right now. But maybe as we wrap up Drupal 8 in those 6 months of what do we do, that would be a great conversation to have. And then, once we start Drupal 9, we can implement a change like this if we choose as a community to pursue that. So.
I just want to chime in here one quick sec. Sorry, chicks, but just to point out, we have actually added a number of features to Drupal 7. We have actually filled out a number of missing holes in Drupal 7. We haven't done things like move the entirety of Entity API module into core or anything like that. But a lot of places where Contrib is running up against, shoot, we don't even have a hook to inject right here, so I can alter a widget info or something like that. And so we're like, okay, well, let's make sure that there's a hook there, And so we actually do, as contributed module authors, hit problems as long as the issue gets to RTPC and it doesn't break anything. And David Rothstein is amazing at he can foresee the future of any kind of bugs we're gonna have with stuff. But he's really good at analyzing that stuff. And there's actually a number of things that we've committed to Drupal 7 to make that easier. And we can do that because we have all the automated tests. So I think as we go forward as a project, we can get more and more loose as we get more experience with it. But I think right now, I think we have the right balance between we could add that, but that might break other people's sites, so we're not going to do that. That has to live in Contrib. But this thing totally makes sense, and the risk is very low, so we'll move that in. But it is pretty much case-per-case basis at the moment.
Chicks again?
Yeah, so about the Drupal 8 contributors needing to learn Symfony, that I just want to reassure everybody, you probably won't need to do it because most of the Symfony things are not going to be visible in a module level. We most likely will not get there. One thing. Second thing, I begin to think about this, and one thing that people actually, or more like the companies people work for, could help with is to have free trainings for contrib authors. Because the training that a contrib author needs is very different from what a site builder needs. And obviously, most of them don't have the money for training, and they need training because if you look at most contrib modules, so that was an idea.
People couldn't see his face, but.
Yeah. So. As for BC compatibility, actually Drupal 9 is probably, I just wanted to say before you elaborated that 8 is not a good play, but 9 is probably is because we are getting to the point where the code is not the spaghetti it was. So that's all I wanted to say.
These are two good points.
We couldn't do it, just wanted to say that we couldn't do it before because the whole code was so interconnected that you change one API and everything breaks. So it was really impossible to do BC so far.
All right. Well, thank you. Good point. Ryan?
I had a question about views in core, basically.
Okay.
I actually like this in core, but it's one of the things that gives users a surprising amount of ability to shoot themselves in the foot. And it's been kind of nice as in Contrib because there's a thought that when you download Drupal core, anything you can click together in Drupal core should perform, and that's Drupal's job to make that happen. Clearly, that's not true for views. You can make things that perform very poorly.
Right.
Has there been any thought to adding hooks to allow either Contrib or core to allow either Contrib or core to give users guidelines on either how to write views or a very large set of examples on common views for sites?
Can we get the module in core?
I think Chicks wrote a module that tells you if you have bad joins in your views.
He did.
So, I don't know. Does that work, Chicks, now?
It never detected any bad joins.
But if the module exists, then it must. If the module exists, it might be there. Do you mean like an actual, like, in core, you make a really bad view and it says, look what you've done?
Perhaps, or at least examples, because you can never, like, a user will always be able to find a new way to do something poorly. But examples for, like, common idioms. And I know that the work for getting views in isn't, but at least getting the discussion started about it, I hadn't heard it.
I mean, it would be cool to have, like, an issue to discuss whether that would be, like, a feature that we could add. Like, I would think probably Bojan would want to talk about how to do it. Because, like, you make a view and you get a big red warning and it says, your view is going to destroy your site. And the guy's got, like, they've got, like, 3 nodes and 4 users. But, yeah, I mean, but something, or at least making sure that it's still easy for Chicks' module to work, or, But also, I mean, there are things in core that perform really badly that you can enable statistics module and forum module and stuff like that. Well, forum's actually not as bad as it used to be now. Sorry. Add 1,000 fields, yeah. So
but nothing compares to something that you would expect to be able to do. I know. No, I'm not saying it's a technical issue.
I think in general it's a great principle, though. Like, we should try and protect users from, destroying their sites. So I think we'll take it as a call to action, and hopefully we can have a discussion around it. Mark.
Yes. Just a comment about the automated performance testing idea. So, like I said, we looked at that a little while back, and doing some of the profiling on Drupal 8 so far on the big patches, I found it's a little more complex than what we would get from that, because it's not as if we have patches going in and we can say that we had this performance regression and it's because of this patch. We have incremental changes going in. Like, so say the kernel, we bootstrap much farther to even instantiate the kernel to get functionality that we had earlier in the bootstrap before. So right now we have a much, much larger code path when that went in, but it's not to say when you look at that issue, it's like, well, we have a 10% regression, we need to, or we can't put it in. We just need to make sure to follow up and take out all of the old code we don't need anymore, because like working on the HTTP cache, I found there's a lot of code there that's really redundant with what's in the kernel.
Yeah, so I opened an issue this week, which is like a critical task to fix all the performance regressions one way or the other. So what I want to try and do is list the issues that we know like regress performance, and then list the issues that are going to fix them in some way, whether they're related or not necessarily, so that we can track that, because we are like unknowingly committing patches that have performance regressions, and sometimes unknowingly. But it's exactly true that we put stuff in and then we might not even use it, and we don't have a performance regression until it's used by every core module, like 6 months later. So, but like I really don't want Drupal 8 to come out and be slower than Drupal 7, which was slower than Drupal 6, which was slower than Drupal 5. Like, it would be nice to actually get all, and I think if we go all the way through what we've done, then there's so many wonderful things that we will be able to do to make people's sites blazing fast, like both front end performance and just server side performance and scalability. Everything could be lovely if we get there. So, but like as we're getting closer to code freeze, I'm quite happy to bump the issues that have to finish this to not have regressions to critical tasks, because if not, we have like nasty performance regressions in 8 months. So please help. I'll put that issue up somewhere, and if people can help like identify what we do, then we can like figure out where we really need to focus on like performance over the next 6 months.
And maybe we can make it part of our default, workflow. Like we have these meta issues, like one thing broken down into 10 issues. Maybe there should be step 11, after everything got in. Like step 11 is to do performance testing, and maybe we can start by tracking it better. I don't know. right. Chicks, I'll come back.
Yeah, I just came back up, but apparently others remember this module that I have written, which analyzes and does check indexes. I mean, it's a Drupal 6 module, but it's about 50 lines of code. It's trivial to port to 8 and
What's the name?
avoid.
Avoid. Great. Check it out.
Yeah,
Avoid
there is
module.
something to warn people that they are doing joins that they shouldn't really do.
All right, thank you.
My name is Sebastian Ocio. I have a question regarding how well you think you're doing engaging people to come into core. The thing is, I know Drupal a year now, maybe more, and I think the curve to learn through the website is a bit too steep, and I think it shouldn't be. It's not actually that difficult, but maybe I haven't found the ways through the website or through the initiatives that are really like what you say in German, Vorkauen, like preparing you to be able to engage into work that is really needed and everybody's asking for.
So I think we can always do better at this. However, I do feel like we as a community are pretty remarkable in terms of trying to get people in through a lot of different things we do. From tagging issues to organizing sprints, and Jess is a prime example of somebody who's very passionate about getting more people into the door. You want to say a few things about?
Okay, so I'd like to point out specific things that we are actually doing to try to engage new core contributors. One thing is we do office hours twice a week in the Drupal IRC channel. The premise is that anyone who has some Drupal site building experience can come and get a self-contained task to work on an issue in core. So all they have to do, they don't have to have any special skills, and it won't be any special particular issue. It might be something that's as trivial as, like clean up the comments in a patch, but that gives them a chance to interact directly with core developers. Another thing that we're actually doing, this is a great lead-in, and thank you, I wanted to mention something. We're doing a sprint on Friday that is, if you haven't contributed to core before and you're interested, we have a free training that Addison Berry and the Drupalize Me team are doing to train people, sort of bootstrap them, and these are the tools that you need to contribute to core. Here's how you navigate the core issue queue. Here's the kinds of things you can work on. And we're going to be doing more of those trainings. We've done 6 so far. This will be the 7th, and there's one today. We'll do another one at Bad Camp, and so on. There's another thing I'd really like to highlight is the Drupal Ladder initiative. DrupalLadder.org is the URL. This is a program where it's designed for local user groups to make part of their weekly meetups be learning how to contribute to core and then taking a particular issue in core and working on it as a user group. So there's like 3 different paths that we can take, and I guess sort of making people aware of them is a big deal, because I mean, all these things have been here for people like a year now. All these 3 things have existed. So if anyone has any suggestions on how to promote that better and how to make people more aware, that's great. But I guess the biggest thing is word of mouth. Go to your local user group and say, hey, come to office hours. Hey, do you want to try this Drupal Ladder thing? And I'm sure that the people who are working on that would love to help you. So if anyone has any ideas?
So how amazing is that people like Jess and I think Brian, is Brian here from the Drupal Ladder? I mean, that they're all like doing this work to get more people in. I think it's very unique. Yeah.
Follow up, don't applaud for me. I would really like it if there would be more people who want to help mentor this stuff, because I like to work on core myself. So if you're interested, if you have some experience contributing to Drupal, it doesn't have to be that you don't have to be catch. But if you have some experience working in the Drupal core issue queue, please ping me, and I would love to help you help me. So if you have like 2 hours a week that you can answer someone's questions on IRC, or on the other hand, ping Brian if you'd like to have more information on how to set up a ladder for your local user group. So this is not a closed box. If you see this as a problem, please come and talk to us, and you can help us mentor new contributors if you have 2 hours a week.
What was your handle again?
I'm XJM.
Okay, because I will contact you for my user group. Because that's one thing that we talk about a lot, and a lot of
Yay.
You can also go to DrupalLadder.org and contact any of the maintainers of any of the lessons on that site through the contact form for each group user.
So does anyone know how much time we have left?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. All right. Any other questions? There must be more questions. Don't be shy.
I have a question.
You have a question. Uh-oh.
Not for you, for the audience. So I work at Acquia. I work with Dries. I work with Gabor and Jesse Beach, and I work with Wim Leers. And for the past 3 months, we have been working our asses off on the Spark distribution, which is for Drupal 7, and right now. But the goal has always been for Spark to be, recommending authoring experience improvements to Drupal 8 core. And we're using Drupal 7 as a vehicle for that in order to allow people to actually try this stuff on real sites and stuff like that. I would love, we've done a lot of sessions, we've done a lot of BOFs, we've had some great discussions here. I would love to get a sense from the room as to whether or not we have agreement that this stuff would be fucking awesome in core and we can go balls out trying to get it into Drupal 8, or if we should stick to contrib. Does anybody have any comments on that?
So,
all right, quick poll. Yes.
Yeah, we need to do a poll.
Or,
I haven't seen many of the workshops, but I've looked at some of the videos online and I've downloaded the demo thing and had a play, and I think it is incredibly awesome. I just want to say that, and I would be incredibly excited to see that in 8. But I also am concerned if it's too much work and we don't get it in there, do we have anything? And so I was talking to Nate, Quick Sketch, if he's here, about the sort of like the low-end version of improvements. Is that, if we can't have all of the wonder of Spark, what's plan B?
I think all of the wonder of Spark requires a lot of the architecture stuff that has to happen for other initiatives anyway. So it would be a way of funneling in resources to Drupal 8 that don't exist right now because they're on Drupal 7, and very frigging smart people that are awesome. So I think that the plan B would just be, if we work our butts off and we try and get all of these things like blocks and layouts in place and filter system improvements in place and this other stuff, and then we get to the end and we don't quite have the WYSIWYG patch ready yet, or this, that, and the other thing, they would continue living contrib for Drupal 8. But I don't know, I would really like to work on it. Do people agree? Yay? Okay. Does anybody want to hit me with a tomato? Okay, awesome. We'll have a tomato boff. Yeah. Did you want to mic it, or? Are you? Okay.
Just for the fun of it.
Those aren't exclusive.
True. Yes. All right. Thank you. Tomato fun.
Any other questions?
Sorry, it's not a question again, but it kind of is. So in your keynote, you talked about the problem of core developer sustainability, core contributor sustainability in general, which is something that I think concerns a lot of people. And so I'd like to repeat something that Alex said in one of the core conversations earlier this week, which is if you have a company that wants some of this stuff like Spark, like configuration management, like Fusion Core, for example, please encourage that company to either donate money or developer time or any kind of thing. If they get in contact with the initiative lead for whichever initiative, what you hear over and over again in these core conversations, every single initiative lead says, please, we have these huge blockers, we need more help. So if you can talk to the people you work for and get them to help donate either your resources or financial resources or whatever, that would help a lot too.
Anyone else? No more questions.
Wow.
we have a few minutes left.
All right, I guess I'll just say one more thing. One more thing on like just the forthcoming freak out phase. Like Can we all just like make a pact to each other that we're going to remember that even when we're back behind our computers and we're all little blue nicknames on the internet and stuff like that, that, you know, please remember this moment when we are all sitting together, we are all people, we are all human beings, we all really wanted Drupal to kick ass, and try to keep that in mind because the tensions will raise. We are going to get into fights with each other, but let's just really try our best to treat each other with respect and treat each other well and know that no matter what the disagreement's about, we all want what's best for Drupal. Thanks.
Yeah, well said. All right, before we wrap up, maybe one more thing. You know, raise your hand or stand up if you actually have a patch in core, 7, 8, whatever it is. Cool. Both. All right. So that's a lot of people. How many people have not contributed yet? To core, yeah. Do it on Friday. All right. I will personally review your patch and see if we can commit it. I may commit it from the needs review state. Just kidding. All right, thank you.
That was good.